What's going on? What's going on, you guys? What's going on? Ghislaine, another video. Ghislaine Maxwell. Ozzy Osbourne passed away today, and it wasn't just a week ago that he did a concert. Like I just watched him do a Black Sabbath reunion with the original drummer Bill Ward, original lineup: Bill Ward, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butley, Ozzy Osbourne. It was the original lineup, and that was their very last show. And a week ago. I just watched it a week ago, man, and Oz passes a week to the day, man. I watched this like last week, and Ozzy was sitting down during the whole performance, but I didn't think nothing of it. And yeah, man, he passed away today, man. So um, I do want to acknowledge that he is one of the pioneers. Well, the whole Black Sabbath, they're pioneers of what we know today as heavy metal. For those of y'all that listen to, I know everybody in my crowd don't listen to heavy metal, but you're aware of it. You don't have to like it to know of it. If you know of heavy metal, then you know, rest in peace, Ozzy. Amazing that he got to the last show and saw his daughter Kelly get proposed to backstage. I did not know that. I did not know that, Rob Cat. Um, I was amazed enough to see Bill Ward play because him and well, it wasn't even so much Bill Ward and Ozzy. Bill Ward and Sharon fell out back in the '70s. They fell out and they had made it was like a vendetta because originally they had made Bill Ward fire Ozzy from Black Sabbath. So uh, Sharon Osbourne had a vendetta and they basically got the revenge because she basically when they had some other reunion, I can't remember. They had so many reunions, but this was the reunion of all reunions. I believe there was supposed to be another. I remember Henry Rollins from Black Flag. He had announced the original lineup. I remember hearing about that, and then Sharon and Bill Ward had fell out, and so that never transpired with the original drummer. So that was Bill Ward's like he hadn't done any projects like he was retired. So seeing Bill Ward play with Ozzy in the original lineup was really I got to watch it on YouTube because you bootleggers um, you could actually stream it and I was like, man, this is really something else, just the original lineup, but I did not know that it was Ozzy's last show. I had no clue. But again, when Ozzy was performing, he was sitting down the whole time. I was like, well, yeah, he is old and, okay. And I didn't think nothing of it. But yeah, man, shout out to the Osbournes. Shout out to Bill Ward and his family. Shout out to Geezer Butler and his family. Shout out to Iommi and his family. Tony Iommi, man, one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Yeah, I say greatest of all time, man. I think Tony Iommi, uh, being the situation that he had made his own prosthetics to continue his musical career was a story in itself. So I want to say, how's my mic, by the way? How's my mic? How's my mic? I didn't even do a mic check. I'm just sitting up here talking away. Rob, is my mic okay? Hello, everyone. Hey, Roland, how you doing? How you doing, Roland? Lovely, lovely, Roland. Oh, shoot, Roland, do you have a show scheduled today? Uh-oh, because I don't want to clash in with Roland's show because, Roland be doing these evening shows. Your mic is good. Hey, Roland, so did you hear what happened? Ozzy Osbourne passed away today. I don't know. I think Roland, we, being that we're the same age, we listen to a lot of the same. Miss Rowland is from I want to say the MTV generation, when MTV was at its peak. And so I know Miss Rowland, I know you're familiar with Ozzy Osbourne. I don't know if you listen to Ozzy Osbourne, but I know you listen to a lot of rock and roll. I heard about Ozzy. Yeah, that was sad. That's sad. And Miss Rowland, I watched his last concert just last week. Crazy Train. Okay, so she does know Ozzy. Okay, okay. So Miss Rowland, I'm assuming you like Ozzy Osbourne because when I talk to black women about Ozzy, they only refer to one song, and that's that song with Lita Ford. Can I hold my eyes together? They all refer to that, but they don't. When you say Crazy Train, that's really one of his harder hits, solo hits. Um, I'm more of a Black Sabbath fan, even though yeah, I did like Ozzy's solo career. I thought, even though okay, Ozzy and Black Sabbath are like two different types of music. First of all, um, I do admire his solo career and his solo albums, but to me, in my opinion, none of his solo albums could touch Black Sabbath. Like Black Sabbath was like, man, Black Sabbath was. Oh man, yeah, I love some Black Sabbath, and Black Sabbath was not only a heavy for their time because Tony Iommi, because he had the prosthetic fingers, he had to down tune his guitar, and a lot of people are unaware of what they call the devil's note. The devil, I was never into Black Sabbath either. No, I was into Black Sabbath, and I thought Ozzy's solo career was okay because I was always comparing it to Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, I was a fan of all day, but I get it, Miss Rowland, because Black Sabbath is a darker, it's a more darker type of music. It's really the Black Sabbath are the forefathers of heavy metal. And so what's up? What's going on, Mac? And because it's the first prototype of heavy metal, they were too dark for me. Right, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it, Miss Rowland. It's so funny because people always associate Black Sabbath with being a satanic band, but they were really more political than anything. War Pigs, War Pigs was a political song. Hand 'em Doom was a song about drug abuse. Like none of their songs were about Satanism. That's the funny part about it. You know what I'm saying? It was always the American religious community putting that on them. And yeah, I will say this: I was listening to Mick Jagger, Rolling Stones. It's funny because Rolling Stones and Black Sabbath. Well, they were unique. I'm gonna just leave it. I'm gonna leave it that alone because they were unique. But I would say as far as subject matter, Black Sabbath and Rolling Stones were almost equally the same. They both talked about drug abuse. They both were very political. I would say that Black Sabbath was even more political. Rob Stewart, Elton John. Oh yeah, you getting all into the women stuff. Yeah, yeah, Elton John and Rod Stewart. Yeah, that's music for women. Pink Floyd. Yeah, yeah. See, this is where me and Roland split because Roland, I don't know if you're aware, there's music made for women and there's music made for men. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's music made for women and music made for men. Rod Stewart is definitely made for women. Elton John, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, you talking about bands. I don't really, yeah, Van Halen, Def Leppard. Yeah, Def Leppard, that's for women. That's a women's band. I wouldn't even say Van Halen was for women. David Bowie. Yeah, David Bowie was talented. But Duran Duran, yeah. Duran Duran was like a pre Depeche Mode band. They were like Depeche Mode before Depeche Mode was Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode kind of ruled the late 80s, 90s. Duran Duran ruled before that. Second British wave invasion. But um, they didn't have the longevity of a Black Sabbath or, yeah, Guns N' Roses. Yeah. Yeah, kind of a girly band. That's a girly band. Yeah, Roland, you're such a girly girl. You're such a girly girl. You went to all these girly bands. See, you notice the guy bands. She don't like. I said Black Sabbath was more masculine. It was more political. It was more, yeah. So, but I get it. I just got home from work. Okay. Yeah, all those are girly bands, but you a girly. You a girly girl. So I get it, Miss Rowland. You a girly girl, so that appeals to you. And what I try to teach people, Miss Rowland, is that call me tomorrow. I will. I will. I am. Yeah, you are a girly girl. You are a full 100% woman, girly girl. So shout out to Miss Rowland. What time is your show, Miss Rowland? Because I'm gonna have to cut this short so we can attend your show. What time is your show? I think you have a show scheduled. Yeah, I just cut it on when I found out about Ozzy, but I want everybody to go to your show. I don't want to tomorrow. Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay, okay, okay. So show's tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow, Miss Rowland. So Miss Rowland, okay, 6:30. Okay, good, good. I didn't want to intrude, but yeah, I didn't have this show planned because I just found out about Ozzy. I found out about Ozzy earlier, but I didn't have my headset in my truck. So I was going to do a show earlier, but I left it in the truck. So now I'm doing the show. But yeah, Ozzy. Um, where do I start, Miss Rowland? I want to explain the whole girly girl thing to you of how certain music was geared towards women because women were bigger consumers of music. And that's why I say, yeah, girly girl. It was like that marketing. That marketing started in the 70s with Barry White, and it continued on with different genres of music. Like I said, your Elton Johns, I mean, I can go on, but mainly it started with Barry White when he did the all women concert. Um, you're my age, so I don't know if you remember that, but Terry Pendergrass, yeah, women, yeah. Teddy Pendergrass, Barry White, they're the ones that the record company started focusing. Oh, we need to damn focus more on women. Like, let me give you an example, Miss Rowland. A lot of people would be shocked, but Tupac Shakur was geared towards women. I bet you didn't know that. A lot of men don't know that. Rob Cat. What did Rob Cat say? Oh, gee, what did Rob Cat say? Rob Cat said guys were pursuing women. Man, boys were pursuing women. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. And oh, she didn't know that. See, a lot of people don't know yet. Tupac Shakur came out during the gangster rap era. And gangster rap was not selling towards the women, so they were like, you know what? We need somebody during this whole gangster rap, but somebody to gear towards the women. And that's how they came up with Tupac Shakur. I was not a fan of Tupac. Yeah, I get it, Miss Lynn. You were not a fan of Tupac. But a lot of guys are unaware that Tupac was brought out. That's why he would always come out with no shirt on. They spray the baby powder. I mean, the baby oil on him because he was geared towards women. He was trying to get the market because a lot of women weren't buying gangster rap at that time. They were not buying NWA. They were not buying Ice Cube. They were not buying MC8, Spice One, and so they had to come out with Tupac, who was doing the gangster rap but appealed to the women, and that's how Tupac came along. But yeah, me being a person who listened to gangster rap, I was never into Tupac because I knew what he was geared towards. He was geared towards women. That's why people are like, oh, you don't like Tupac? I'm like, no, he was geared towards women. But back to Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne created a genre of music called heavy metal, and from heavy metal, see, a lot of people think it was Steppenwolf, heavy metal thunder, born to be wild. No, they were rock and roll. And Indigada da Vida, baby, Iron Butterfly, those were hard rock groups because they did not tone down to the devil's note. In order to get heavy metal, you got to turn to the devil's note. If anybody know musical history, Miss Rowland, I'm assuming you know music history during the medieval times when they said that there was a devil's note, they were not allowed to play the devil's note. So the devil's note created a whole new genre of music. And the devil's note was forbidden by the Catholic Church. You were not allowed to downtune. So for centuries, bands did not downtune the devil's notes. It wasn't until Tony Iommi, he was working in the factory, and there was this press that came down on his fingers and sliced his fingers off. And so he had to down tune his guitar. He had to make his own aesthetics. And by down tuning, like I said, this hadn't been done in centuries. By down tuning, it allowed the frequency of the devil's note, which created a whole new genre of music. Heavy metal, thrash metal, death metal, grindcore, speed metal. you name it, black metal, all this genre created was because Tony Iommi down-tuned the guitar. No other band, no other group down-tuned the guitar before Tony Iommi. In fact, the first person that Tony Iommi inspired to down-tune was Jimi Hendrix. That's why Jimi Hendrix was able to do all those tricks. You couldn't do all those tricks with a fully tuned guitar. And my water plants, and water my plants. Okay, baby, I see you. I see you, Miss Lynn. I think you got to water her plants. Love you. So Tony Iommi down-tuned the guitar, and that created a whole new sound. And there you have heavy metal. And Ozzy being the front man, rest in peace, Ozzy. Yeah, Ozzy and Malcolm. Yeah, and Malcolm, love you too. Being that being that Tony down-tuned the guitar, it created a whole frequency. And if you do the history on the Roman Catholic Church and what they say about the devil's note, they prophesized. They said that this is back in the 1600s. They said that the devil's note will not allow it to be played on any instrument because if the devil's note is played, it will unleash. It will unleash. It will unleash stuff. And yeah, what it unleashed heavy metal, it unleashed all these genres of music and all these hardcore bands, and it all started because Tony Iommi down-tuned. Again, Stephen Wolf, Iron Butterfly, Indagata was not heavy metal because they were tuned correctly. They were tuned normally, but when you down tune, you hit the devil's note, and therefore it opened up the frequency to all these genres of heavy metal, of hardcore, of thrash, punk. All that stuff came from Black Sabbath. If you talk to every band, punk rock band, um, Metallica, I don't care any hardcore band, punk, metal, thrash metal, they will say that they were inspired by Black Sabbath. Now it's funny, that's why I said Black Sabbath and Ozzy are two different sounds because when Ozzy went solo, the guitar players tuned back up the guitar. Even though heavy metal was created, it was a different sound because they didn't have Tony Iommi's down tune. The down tune was not there. So the evil sound, this is what makes Black Sabbath a satanic band because of the devil's note, but they never sing about the devil. Now Ozzy tried singing about the devil, but it was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But Diamond, I'm trying to remember what song. See, like I said, I was more of a Black Sabbath fan than an Ozzy solo career. But Ozzy's solo career, Mr. Crowley, it was mystery. Mysterious was rocking out to Paranoid, War Pigs earlier. Right. War Pigs, well, Paranoid was about him breaking up with his woman. Finished with my woman because she couldn't help me with my. But War Pigs is a political song. There's nothing satanic about War Pigs. And a lot of people got to understand that the government was trying to put this label of Satanism on Ozzy Osbourne because they were political. Peep that. Let me say that again. Because they were so political, in order to try to scare people away from Black Sabbath, they stamped this Satanism on them. He's saying about Aleister Crowley, right? Yeah, Aleister Crowley, he did that on his solo career. Mr. Crowley, because Ozzy, when he went solo, he was trying to embrace the whole. They were trying to label him, oh, you're a Satanist, you're a Satanist. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna embrace it. I'm gonna be a Prince of Darkness. He didn't start doing that until he went solo. But Black Sabbath, they were more political. Pigs was straight up political. Yeah, War Pigs was political. Hand of Doom was political. Um, Everything on Paranoid was political. On their second album, Paranoid, finished with my woman. Well, Paranoid was more of him breaking up with his woman, but Iron Man, might be still, and he means he but be still. Every time. For the future, man. Nobody wants him. Okay, Iron Man was a mysterious song. I wouldn't necessarily was satanic, but it was more of a folk. Now, Ozzy Osbourne, and I don't know if this was intentional, was a folk singer. He was an England fairies wear boots, and you gotta believe me, yeah. Okay, so that was a song about drugs. Hand of Doom and fairies was him tripping. He was tripping. Hand of Doom was about heroin. So yeah, that those were about drug abuse. But Nowhere and Paranoid, the first album. Now Black Sabbath, you could say maybe he was singing about Satan, but I mean, okay, Satan's come around the bend, but it was not a Satan worship type of song. So that's why I was just like, but again, because Tony Iommi it down to unintentionally. Tony Iommi was not trying to get the devil's note. He was just trying to play. And because the strings were so tight, it would hurt his fingers. Remember, his fingers were cut off and the bones were exposed. So he had to get the aesthetics and turn them down so the strings were softer to play. And because it was down tuned, again, this goes back to Italian history uh, of Catholicism. If you downtone a, a instrument, you will get the devil's note, and the devil's note will unleash all types of whatever, right? So yeah, I guess that prophecy came true because again, it unleashed them to be the number one band or forefathers of heavy metal. Um, they had triple platinum albums for ages, and Black Sabbath outlasted Led Zeppelin. They outlasted Iron Maiden. They outlasted most of the groups that came after them that they inspired. Judas, well, I wouldn't say Judas Priest. Judas Priest is still around, but I would say that for the most part, Ozzy and Black Sabbath, they pretty much broke records and broke records and broke records, And is this Covington Highway? Yeah, I'll take Covington Highway. Um, yeah, look at this traffic. It's heavy. I'm getting off at this exit. But yeah, Ozzy, man. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of Black Sabbath, but Ozzy Osbourne has made some major, major hits with his solo album. He discovered Randy Rhoads, Zach Wild. I mean, numerous guitars. He's put on like Guns N' Roses. He put on Metallica. So if you went to an Ozfest, which Ozfest is still going on, I'm sure Ozfest is still going on. Um, Most major bands were to if I can get an Ozzy show, I'm put on. That's the greatest way you could be put on, and that blew up Metallica. That blew up that blew up a lot of bands. Blew up a lot of bands. I want to say Pantera, Metallica, Megadeth. Uh, I don't know. It's all kind of bands, man. I went to Ozzy's Fest back in the day. Okay, so Rob Cat, you had the experience of going to an Ozfest, and whatever band plays there are pretty much going to get signed. Like I don't know if you've seen like a new band that you never seen before and they just blew up. That's because Ozzy is like the stamp of approval. It's like you play with Ozzy, you made it. I don't care what band. I don't care. I don't care if you suck. If you play with Ozzy, you'd have made it. You know what I'm saying? I, I'm not a fan of Pantera, but Pantera played with Ozzy. Um, I'm not a fan of Pantera. So there's a lot of bands that played with Ozzy and blew up. He was the kingmaker. That is true. Well, yeah, Rob Cat, he was kingmaker. I would say Ozzy was the king, but yeah, he did. But yeah, he did make Metallica the kingmaker. So I will, I will agree. I will agree with you on that. I will agree. It's weird saying they're the kingmakers when I consider them the king, but I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you, Rob. Um, but if you're in a band and you play an Ozzy show, you done made it. You've made it. Especially Ozfest, you done made it because the talent scouts are there. Like Ozzy brings everybody to his shows, and being that he is the forefather of heavy metal. Is just yeah, you Ozzy puts you on, you're gonna make it. Period. So I don't know if that torch is passed down to Metallica. I would say Metallica is the next people in line to pass the torch. I don't know if Ozzy passed the torch to Metallica because I know they were at his last show. Um, I don't know, but I just know Black Sabbath really set the bar really high, and they they were very talented, man. They were very talented. A lot of ups and downs. And shout out to Bill Ward, man. Bill Ward. I was glad to see him back with Ozzy Osbourne because even though Black Sabbath kept reforming, they kept reforming without Bill Ward. I'm just like, no, man, you got to have Bill Ward back. But again, there was bad blood between Bill Ward and Sharon Osbourne. A lot of people think it was Ozzy and Bill Ward. No, Ozzy and Bill Ward were tight, but Sharon was like, man, once she had a vendetta against Bill Ward, that was it, man. Sharon was like, no mercy, no forgiveness, no nothing. Ozzy and actually Bill Ward are actually cool, man. But yeah, it was Sharon Osbourne who wasn't cool with Bill Ward. But I was glad to see the reunion. Um, I was glad to see, man. I'm glad I watched it, but I never knew that he would be passed away a week later. I was like, dang, he just played last week. I just watched the reunion show last week, man, and he passed away like exactly a week ago. So yeah, this was devastating news to me. He's 76. He passed away at 76, man. Ozzy really accomplished a lot, man. He accomplished a lot, and um I have most Black Sabbath records. Again, I was not a fan of his solo work, but his solo work was good, but it was just different. And I was always in the habit of comparing Ozzy to Black Sabbath, which two different types of music. Because again, Ozzy Osbourne did not have the Devil's Note. What really drew me to Black Sabbath was the Devil's Note, and so all the music I listened to are down tuned. They down tune. Even the group I was part of, we tuned it down. But two of the Russian guys one of the Russian guys with the guitars, he wanted to tune up. So it's like it creates a whole different sound. It creates a whole different sound. And I'm not even a fan of hard rock music that tune up their guitars. I'm a fan of down tuning. If you're down tuning, you got that sound. That's it. You got the devil's note. I'm a big fan of the devil's note. I love the devil's note. I love that sound. I love that sound. And for metal bands to call themselves hard rock or metal or whatever it is to tune up the guitars, it's not the same. It doesn't have that heavy grum 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 grum. Like that down tune is like a if you don't know this type of music, like okay, everything that Miss Rowland, shout out to Miss Rowland, named like Van Halen, they didn't down tune. Who else did she name? Everybody, y'all look at the chat. Look at everything that Miss Rowland put in there. Those, all those groups tuned up their music. They didn't down tune. Down tuning again is the devil's note, and the devil's note fulfilled the prophecy. Like I said, for Europe, for ages, from Vienna to Italy, Rome, all that outlawed the devil's note. And the devil note was outlawed all the way up to Tony Iommi. Nobody down tuned their instrument until Tony Iommi. And again, why did Tony Iommi down tune his guitar, everybody? Put it in the chat. Why did he down tune his guitar? I'm gonna see if y'all. I'm quizzing y'all. I'm quizzing y'all. I'm seeing who paying attention. What up, Josh? What's going on, Josh? Man, we just talking a little history. Sharon is just a vindictive as Trump. Oh gosh, wow, you're right. I can't argue with that. Actually, I think. Actually, you know what? No. I don't think Trump is vindictive because he's not going after Obama, right? So that's another thing I wanted to say, but I'm glad you brought that up. So they're saying that Obama created treason. You know, if it's up to Trump, Trump will pardon Obama. But Obama's not going to be in any trouble. So I wouldn't even call Rob. I disagree. I don't even think Trump's vindictive because Trump is not going to do nothing to Obama. He ain't going to do nothing to him. Just like he didn't do nothing to Hillary Clinton. He could have locked Hillary Clinton up. And did he? No. All his rallies, lock her up, lock her up. And did they lock her up? No. Trump's like, well, I couldn't see myself locking up, a wife of a president. Oh, man, Trump just be talking. I don't think Trump's vindictive. Sharon Osbourne is vindictive. She's vindictive because if it was up to her, Bill Ward would have never played drums for damn uh, Black Sabbath ever again. So if it was up to Sharon, Bill Ward would have never played for that reunion would have never happened if it was up to damn Sharon. I think Ozzy pressed the issue. He admitted that. Yep. Yeah. Trump be talking, but he ain't. No, Trump ain't vindictive. Again, all this shit. Y'all press one if y'all know about the whole thing with Obama. That Obama set up Russia, and that's considered treason. And do you think Trump's gonna go after Obama? No, he ain't. No, man. As much as shit Trump's talks, he not going after. Yeah, exactly, Rob. He ain't going after Obama, man, because he didn't go after Hillary Clinton. Hey, what's up? What's up, Chubbs, man? What's up, man? So y'all, um, Chubbs, I'm assuming you're a fan of Black Sabbath and Ozzy, which are two different sounds. But again, Ozzy is great. Ozzy is great solo career. I prefer Black Sabbath because Tony Iommi wrote the music, and Ozzy's solo career, he had different writers. He had Zach Wild, he had Randy Rhoads, he had different people arranging the music. But Black Sabbath was all written by Tony Iommi, which had a distinct sound. And so again, that down tune, the Devil's Note. Again, how many of y'all know about the Devil's Note? I mean, this is history that he's not the demon they say he is. Are you talking about Trump or Ozzy? If you're talking about Trump, yeah, Trump's is a soft man, and I don't want to say soft in a negative light, but Trump is all talk, man. He ain't gonna do nothing to Obama, man. Man, he friends with Obama. They friends, man. Just like he don't want to do nothing to Ghislaine Maxwell. But I'm gonna do a separate video. I'm gonna say this about Ghislaine Maxwell because I wanted to say this for a whole nother video. I think she's gonna get off. I think she's gonna get out. I think they're either something is brewing in her favor right now, and I think she's going to get out. I think Ghislaine Maxwell's going to get out, but I'm going to say that for a whole nother video. Um, um, let's see. What else? What else? What else, y'all? So we talk. Okay, I'm gonna mention Glenn at another time, but I want to. So basically, this is my video, man. Y'all, thank y'all for the likes, man. I just wanted to come on here, pay my respects to Ozzy Osbourne, man. Again, he's done so much work. Um, I mean, there's nothing that I've played that wasn't inspired by Ozzy. As y'all know, I play bass guitar. Um, and the genre of music that I like, y'all know that I like going to mosh pits. Yeah, I'm 53 years old, jumping in mosh pits, but there would be no mosh pit without Black Sabbath. That whole genre of music was created because of the Devil's Note. So I admire Ozzy for his 40 years of marriage and family. Oh yeah, 5 kids with many grandchildren. Oh yeah, Rob Cat, man. It's funny you say that because a lot of people discovered Ozzy with the Osbournes. So that's another part of Ozzy. So you got Black Sabbath Ozzy, you got the '80s Crazy Train Ozzy, and then you got the Ozzy from the Osbournes, and then of course you got Ozzy from the Ozfest. But Osbournes that brought in a whole fan base that didn't involve his music. Ozzy was a funny man. Yeah, he was, man. Ozzy. Yeah, Ozzy was always a funny dude, even in the Black Sabbath days. He was always, that's why I like when Ozzy had Jet Black uh, perform and do Mr. Crowley. That's a whole nother video, man. But let me just say, yeah, I like that video I'm saying, and it was fucking. I think Ozzy picked the perfect guy to emulate him. Jet Black, Jet Black, he's a funny guy, but Ozzy's always been a funny guy since like the early '70s. If you look at the old clips of Black Sabbath, you will see he's very comical. He always cracked jokes. He was always a funny guy. So yeah, um, Ozzy was always, the guy with the sense of humor, man. And even when he was kicked out of Black Sabbath, he did a solo career. He was still that guy, man. The guy that cracked jokes and was just the fun guy to be around, man. So Ozzy, I remember I watched this movie about it was actually a movie about Motley Crue, and I loved how they betrayed Ozzy, man. The guy that played Ozzy, y'all check out the Motley Crue movie. I forgot the name of the Motley Crue movie, but they showed Ozzy in it. They gave homage to Ozzy. It was fun. They say Rob Kent say, "I would have been dead long ago if it weren't for Sharon. God bless her for setting up that last show." Yeah, Sharon was the business person. She was the brains. She was the business brains behind Ozzy's whole career. When Ozzy was kicked out of Black Sabbath, she believed in him and launched his career, and she she was the brains behind it. So yeah, I would definitely have to give Sharon her props, and I think it was because of Sharon that the Osbournes came out. That wasn't Ozzy. That was Sharon. That was her project, and she was behind the whole Osbournes thing. So that Osbournes was a whole nother level. But Ozzy's solo career and the Osbournes was all her doing. Saying Ozzy had the talent, but Sharon was the business. She was the business behind it, man. Trust me, not only would Ozzy not be here, but Ozzy would have been broke. There's been plenty of times where Sharon had to bail him out of jail, and because Ozzy would be just doing silly shit. Like he would, I remember he went down to Texas, and he pissed on the Alamo in front of the damn, pissed on the Alamo. He had to take piss, and the cops right there, like, oh no, we taking you to jail. You're not gonna piss on our Alamo, there, boy. What the hell you doing? Not pissing you. You on the arrest. So yeah, Ozzy would do silly shit. You know what I'm saying? And Sharon had to bail him out a lot of times. And he was at one point in time he was hitting the bottle. And when you hit the bottle, you get in a lot of trouble, especially in the '80s, man. A lot of rock stars got into a lot of trouble. Some got into some accidents. So, Black Sun. Pico, what's going on, man? Yeah, we're talking about Ozzy, man. We're talking about Ozzy, man. There would be no black metal production. There would be no black metal without Ozzy, man. So, man, I'm glad you're here, man. Fellow metalhead, man. I'm glad you're here, man. See, Pico, like me, he listens to black metal. And there would be no black metal. There would be no Mayhem. There would be no Behemoth. There would be there would be no black metal without Ozzy Osbourne because Ozzy Osbourne tuned down the devil's note. And because you tuned down the devil's note, you had thrash metal, you had death metal, and then you had black metal. Black metal was always trying to compete with the death metal. But I say that you got all these different genres, and let's not talk about thrash and no Sex Pistols. There'd be no goddamn Henry Rollins group. There'd be no Black Flag. There'd be no Minor Threats. There'd be no GBH. There'd be no goddamn there would be no Exploited. A lot of the English bands wouldn't be here, but there would be a lot of metal bands. There would be no Metallica. There would be no Megadeth. There would be no goddamn Anthrax. There would be no goddamn Slayer. None of these groups, especially Slayer. There would never be no Slayer. Oh, you got a down tune. In order to get the devil in your music, you got to down tune that. You got to don't lower that damn tone there. No ACDC. No, it wouldn't be no ACDC. No, no, it wouldn't be no ACDC because ACDC and Iron Maiden, that second wave of British metal, and well, ACDC from Australia, but Australia was inspired by the second wave of British metal. All that came from Black Sabbath. Yeah, sorry, Ozzy, rest in peace. Yeah, man, Ozzy, he put in a lot of work, Pico. He put in a lot of work, man. He really, his legacy is, he's solidified, man. He's solidified. Ozzy is solidified, man. His legacy, he's created a lot of bands. A lot of bands have, I mean, Ozfest, Rob will tell you about the Ozfest, so many. Damn, I think Ozfest is bigger than Lollapalooza. Ozfest is like a lot of these festivals that come out. Ozfest is, I think, bigger than all of it, man. I mean, shout out to Lollapalooza, but I think Ozfest is bigger than Lollapalooza. The Ozfest is bigger than a lot of festivals that they have, man. And man, like I said, the Ozfest, man, if you played that, you made it. You've made it. If you had a band and you were playing at the Ozfest, you've made it. You've made it because you're gonna get put on. You're gonna get put on. Um, do some differences. What's the group called? Starts with an S, Sepultura or something like that. Oh yeah, Sepultura. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ozzy was huge. Yeah, Ozzy was huge. Yeah, Sepultura. I'm glad you brought up Sepultura. Sepultura has a brother from Detroit, which was a weird. Sepultura was a Hispanic band, and they kicked out the original singer and drummer left or something. They fell out, and they got some dude from Detroit. So man, shout out to him, man, and he added a whole new sound to Sepultura, man, and they actually, yeah, he's a brother from Detroit, man. I forgot his name, man, but I was like stunned because Sepultura was like this, all Hispanic band, and people from South America and all that. They were like, brown power. I'm not saying it was brown power, but they were all Hispanic pride and everything. And then next thing you know, they get a brother from Detroit singing, and I was like, oh, okay, So yeah, shout out to Sepultura, man. Shout out to the brother from Detroit. Um, yeah, but there would be no Sepultura. There'll be no Sepultura, man. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Sepultura, Sepultura. Every time I said Sepultura, man, the damn people from Mexico and all that would always correct me. My Hispanic brothers, oh no, it's Sepultura. You're saying it wrong, Sepultura. And I was like, I could never pronounce it, man. I'm not Hispanic, so I just Sepultura. I don't know. So anywho, man, shout out, man. But yeah, a lot of bands, man, all over the world. Not only like South America, Mexico, Europe, Africa. We don't talk about African bands that black metal African bands. We don't never talk about that. South Africa, man. Um, Japan, of course. Malaysia, Philippines, man. I mean, all over. England. Pick a spot, man. Just pick anywhere across the globe, man. And let me tell you, hard rock music was inspired by Ozzy, man. Ozzy is the forefather. So, man, I want to give homage to Ozzy, man. Shout out to Ozzy Osbourne, man. Damn, great career, great music, man. And like I said, I'm more of a Black Sabbath fan, but his solo work was great. Her solo work was great though. Let me say that. I was just always in the habit of comparing the two, but Ozzy's solo career was great. Um, I believe Ozzy did a movie. Did Ozzy do a movie, or was there a portrayal of Ozzy? I can't remember. Just saw a thumbnail of a short from Bloodstock 2023 and Black Dude after typing the simple throat. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's the new singer, man. But big dude, man. Have you heard the Shepherd's Rake, Samoan Pacific, Island Band? I've never heard Shepherd's Rain. I've never heard of them, Rob. I've never heard them, but I'll check them out. What's your age, Black Sun? I'm 52. Sepultura was one of my best bands. Okay, okay, Sepultura. Okay, yeah. One of my favorite bands. See, these are different genres. See, Sepultura comes out of the thrash metal era. So I've oh my God. So I've come out of a thrash metal era, a death metal era, and a black metal era. I'm now in a black metal era, but before that I was in the death metal era, and then I was in the thrash era. And right around the thrash era, I was in the punk era too. So punk, thrash, um, And then I was in a like a hard rock, like your Motorhead era, your Venom era. I was, I was into, but I say thrash metal era because I was one of the early eras. The thrash metal was the early era. I remember going to the concert back in the '70s that has Ozzy was there along with other rock stars. Okay, Chubbs. Oh, so you talking about you about talking about the Kiss era? See, that was the Kiss era. The '70s were the Kiss era. See, Kiss dominated the '70s. Black Sabbath. No, 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 no. Wait. Hold up. Let's rewind that. Black Sabbath and Kiss were during the same era. So I was never really into Kiss. I was not into Kiss, but yeah, Black Sabbath and Kiss were parallel. All the '70 bands are amazing. Raw Power, I would agree with that. But being that I'm a '70s baby, I think I'm kind of biased when I say that. But yeah, the '70s were cool. Um, I would prefer the '80s though, but I would say the '80s were more experimental than the '70s. If that, but you had Hawkwind and all that, but in the '80s you had Motorhead. So I had a friend and coworker in the early mid '90s in like Sepultura. I think I made a wrong person. Okay. The '80s was mind blowing too. Raw Power. I would say the '80s was more experimental. Um, you had more. I don't know. The '80s was just different. Like the '70s, the '80s, you had more genres coming out. Like you had more like industrial. You had more punk rock. You had punk rock in the '70s, but the '80s, it's like you had more genres coming out, more experimental genres. That's what I would say about the '80s. You know what I'm saying? You had more experimental genres. So yeah, I would like to say I like the '80s. I come from the '70s. I was born in the '70s, but the '80s. There was something about the '80s. '70s, you had bands like Boston. That's true. Yeah, you had Boston, man. And again, the distinguished Black Sabbath from all those bands in the '70s, they down tuned the chord. Devil's Note. '80s was magical. The '80s was magical. I mean, the '70s was magical. The '80s, like I say, you just had more experimental genres. And I think the '80s established all that. By the '90s, everything was already established. Nothing was new when you got to the '90s. Like the '70s came out, everybody was starting out, forming stuff. But when the '80s came out, I think everybody made their mark in the '80s. The '80s really distinguished a whole lot in the '80s. And then when the '90s came, it was like, okay, everybody, it's like nothing new came out in the '90s and 2000s. It was like the '80s was the experimental era. That's when I want to say it was more experimental in the '80s. Something about the '80s. '70s was great too. '80s was bomb. Yeah, the '70s was again the '70s was the beginning stage. It was the embryo stage. It was the beginning. It kind of paved the way for the '80s. The '70s paved the way for the '80s, if that makes any sense. Because a lot of the groups that I listened to were forming in the '80s. Like I like now a lot of genres formed in the '70s, but they weren't. I agree with you, Mr. Black. They weren't they weren't validated into the '80s. Meaning you had punk rock in the '70s, you had gothic in the '70s. Like, let me give you an example. Like goth, like I don't know if you guys ever heard of Susie and the Banshees. A lot of punk rock that started with the Sex Pistols, and then you had like the Cure. They were in the '70s. Uh, Susie and the Banshees. Yeah, Susie. Okay, so Susie started off in the '70s as punk, but they got their sound in the '80s. Just like the Cure got their sound. Like they really were. They were. they were validated in the 80s, if that makes any sense. Meaning they really got their sound. Like you got Bauhaus, who got their sound. Like all of them in the 70s, late, they were sounding punk rock, and then they came out with their own sound. And that's why I say from punk in the 70s, it birthed like gothic music, it birthed death rock, it birthed industrial music. So now, there's a lot of genres that Black Sabbath did not. Now, if you talk about Black Sabbath, you talk about hardcore. Now, I will say this because Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, he said he was inspired by Black Sabbath. So, therefore, Black Sabbath played a very significant role on punk rock. So, even the punk rock that spawned these different genres of music in the 80s, you still got to go back to Black Sabbath because, yeah, PIL, yeah. Johnny Rotten said he was inspired by Black Sabbath. Johnny Rotten's own word, y'all can look it up on YouTube. Johnny Rotten said he was inspired by Black Sabbath. So there's no way to escape Black Sabbath, even if you're into punk rock, because punk rock was the anti-rock music, just like black metal was anti-death metal music. But they all are interconnected. They're all interconnected. They're all interconnected, and even your ska, your rap, because rap comes from ska. Uh, Now, I will say this. This is where it gets kind of weird, right? The political side of Black Sabbath. Now, we know Black Sabbath is established. They have the Devil's Note, but who inspired the political side of Black Sabbath? Now we going way back. Now we going way back. The same people. Let me just say this. I'm about to blow y'all minds. The same people that inspired Black Sabbath politically, the same person that inspired Black Sabbath inspired Bob Marley and the Wailers. Guess who that person is? There's Black Sabbath here, Bob Marley, Wailers here. Guess who this person is? I'm going to let y'all get 3 guesses. Who inspired in the 80s? You had White Snake and Def Leppard and Van Halen. That is true, but Van Halen actually started in the 70s. And I believe Chubb's Def Leppard started in the, was it? I don't know. Maybe Def Leppard and Whitesnake started in the 80s, but Van Halen started in the late 79. So again, a lot of these groups, when you look at them in the 80s, a lot of them started at the tail end of the 70s. Well, 78, 77, 78, 79, which is still the 70s. A lot of those dudes started late 70s. Right, exactly. They started in the 70s. That's why I said they were validated in the 80s. They really put their foot down, but a lot of them formed back in the 70s, but we didn't hear about them until the 80s. The 80s is when they got established and really were validated. A lot of them were validated in the 80s, but a lot of them started in the 70s. But they were, like I said, the 70s was the embryo period. That was the starting period of when a lot of the bands actually formed in the 80s, but they formed in the 70s and they didn't make their mark until the 80s. So that's why I said the 80s was the really pivotal point for a lot of bands, because a lot of these bands started in the 70s, late 70s. If you like punk and ska and rock, do you like Bad Brains? Oh yeah, Bad Brains, man. I keep saying, man, Bad Brains are the one that invented the term mosh pit. Mosh is a Jamaican term. That's a Jamaican term. Mosh pit is a Jamaican term. That's not a. That's why a lot of Europeans be like mosh pit. What? Huh? Now slam dancing was in England, but again, you had ska. That's why I said when it comes to the music, there's a lot of crossovers. Cool, I didn't know that. Yeah, there's a lot of crossovers. Rap was birthed from the Jamaican culture. The whole ska, reggae, a lot of that, and then you had the American music. You had Sugar Hill Gang, but even in New York, there was a mashup there between the African American culture and Jamaican culture. So a lot of music mashed up there, which formed your hip hop today and your I want to say, well, reggae is different. Reggae is more an indigenous type of music, but I listen to all kinds of music except for opera. Oh, you don't like opera, Chubbs? Man, Yeah, operas. Yeah, okay, I get it, Chubbs. But let me say this. Let me say this, man. I love these music shows, man. I'm gonna have more music shows, y'all. I'm gonna have more music shows. Damn, man, Ozzy, man, really inspired me today, y'all. Ozzy really inspired me today, man. Yeah, Ozzy's a great man. Ozzy's a legend. Um, Man, let me give a shout out, man, because I could be here all night talking about Ozzy. I might have to do a part two on this, man, because I didn't realize it was so late, man. It's like 7 o'clock, y'all. I could even get inside, take a shower. But let me give a shout out, saying, bro, rest in peace, legend. Hold on, Raw Power. Let me do this for you real quick. Boom. There you go. Shout out to Raw Power. Shout out to Chubbs. Shout out to let's see who else we got in here, man. We got a lot of people. Damn. Shout out to Miss Rollins. Shout out to Do Some Diff. Shout out to Pico Man in the house. Shout out to Rob Cat. Uh, shout out to shout out to everybody in the chat, man. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Oh, Josh, what up, Josh? Shout out to Miss Rowland, the lovely, lovely Miss Rowland. Oh, yes, I man, yes, he, man, yeah, man, yeah. Shout out to Yesy, man. Yo, shout out to everybody, man. All genres of music, man. I want to just give a shout out to everybody, man. Thank y'all for the likes, man. Yeah, Ozzy's a legend, man. He solidified one of the great, man. He created all kind of genres. Y'all, you know, homework. Y'all look up the Devil's Note. That's a real thing. The Devil's Note is a real thing, and it was prophesized. And goddamn, Black Sabbath capitalized off that prophecy. I don't even think it was intentional. You should play a show with your music, Mr. Bloodson. I gotta find my music first, man. My music. You should play a show with your music. Um, oh man, Chubbs. I have to find my music. You know, the guys that I played with, two of them are from Russia. Well, one's from Chechnya, one's from Russia, uh, one's from Israel, and both of the vocalists are from Mexico. So I gotta. I wish I could get in touch with just one of them, man. Any of them. But yeah, my music, I don't know where it is, man. We were underground. The bands we played with Fear Factory, played with Death Cloak, we played with not Simple, we played with Sarcastic, we played with Sadistic Intent, we played with Autopsy. Yeah, we played with Autopsy. We were playing death metal. We were playing death metal, but our music is hard to find. I wish I could pay money, remaster that shit, put the band back together. I wish I could do all that. But they're all in LA. And I don't even know if, like I said, Ilya, he was from Chechnya. Jerry was from what? Nothing. Ilya, and Jerry from Chechnya. Or was Ilya from damn Russia? I can't remember if they were from Russia or Chechnya. I think they were Chechnyan. And then Hadar, he was from Israel. Hadar and Vital, his brother Vital, Vital didn't play, but Hadar, he was the guitarist. He played, he wrote all the music. Then we had Apache and Brujo. Those were the vocalists, man. If I had both of them be vocalists, man, I regret. Damn, man. Shit, we had two vocalists. Our first vocalist was Apache. He was from Defe, Mexico, and then Brujo was from Michoacan, Mexico. I don't know. I haven't talked to these brothers in years, man. But we made our brand was called Saprafit, and we had a demo, and it was rough sounding, but that's how death metal bands were back in the day. But man, thank y'all for coming out, man. I want to, man. I wish I could form that band back, man, because I would uh I would love to have that band back together again and play, man. I would invest in that band. That's how I I would invest it. I would invest in that band. I would invest in that band. I would invest, man. I would have two damn singers, Brujo and Apache. I would have myself playing bass, Hadar playing goddamn guitar, him writing the music, Jerry on lead guitars, and Ilya was on drums, man. Ilya would get winded. He would get winded as a drummer, but hell, if you give him a brand new drum set, he would make it happen. Great show, Mr. Baxter. Thank you, Chubbs, man. Yeah, I just wanted to give homage to Ozzy, man. Ozzy, like I said, a lot of my music collection wouldn't even exist without Ozzy. Half the shows I go to, I would none of these bands would exist. There'd be no damn Misfits. There would be no Slayer. There'd be no BMS. There'd be no hell, name a band. Mayhem. There would be no Sarcophago. There would be none of that. Sepultura. There none of these Metallica. There'd be none of these bands without them. Ozzy, man. Ozzy inspired them all. Inspired them all. Inspired them all, man. So with that being said, man, man. Ozzy's a legend, man. Ozzy's a legend. Great legend, man. And so is goddamn Bill Ward. So is Tony Iommi. Tony Iommi is one of the greatest guitarists, man. Just because of his condition. Geezer Butler, man. Badass bassist, man. Yeah, man. Black Sabbath was like Voltron. And shout out to Ozzy, his solo career. His solo career was great. Yeah, Sabbath was awesome, bro. My favorite Sabbath album was Paranoid. Paranoid was the quintessential Black Sabbath album. The first album was good, but the second album was Black Sabbath was just awesome. Just awesome, man. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. That was the album right there. But even their first album, Black Sabbath, the self-titled Black Sabbath, that album was awesome. The first song was called Black Sabbath. Awesome. Awesome. Iron Man, of course, y'all know from the Road Warriors intros. Iron Man was awesome. Paranoid was awesome. That second album was every song was a hit. War Pigs, Hound of Doom, yo, that whole album was fucking perfect. Got me cursing. All right, y'all. Let me get going. It's like 7:11, man. I gotta get going, man. It's about to get dark. With that being said, I'm out, y'all. Peace. I'm out.